This is the DocNation podcast. We are a movement founded by doctors, for doctors, dedicated to empowering medical professionals to reclaim control over healthcare decisions and advocating for their fair share of the industry's resources. Please note, the views expressed are those of DocNation and not necessarily those of our guests or referenced health centers.
Cool. Well, welcome to our podcast with Adam Miller. I'll let Neil introduce him because they're really connected. But I just want to say to all of our followers and the physicians who are looking to join us at the signature member level, it's cool to see Adam. He's an entrepreneur. He's a hard worker. He's committed to helping physicians. He's on a family trip right now, but he didn't want to miss this. And so we're thankful for that, Adam. Justin and I are oftentimes on the phone or driving in the car, taking meetings, and you might think that's dangerous. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. We're hands-free. But thank you, Adam. We appreciate you. And Neil, without further ado, would you please introduce him?
Oh, it'd be an honor to introduce Adam. Feel like the more I get to work with him and get to know him, I feel like we're cut from the same cloth and have a pretty similar background to arrive here at this DocNation podcast. In podcasts in the past, I talked about myself saying I wanted to help patients and be a part of healthcare in that way, and learning that helping patients meant I needed to figure out how to best assist doctors. I don't know if I know I was a basketball player, so I say things like assist. Adam didn't come from hoops, but he's an athlete himself.
Yeah.
But if he was a basketball player, he'd be a point guard as well, because he is the assist man, and so I love a lot of his strategies, and I love the company he's created, Algos Pathways, and how that's going to revolutionize healthcare in a way. But it starts with asking questions of doctors and being able to support them. So I loved the spirit of that. I like where Adam's heart is as he approaches medicine as an entrepreneur. So I don't know if that's the best introduction for you, Adam, but I am just so thankful that you're here with us to talk with us today.
Well, thanks, Neil. You're too kind as always, and a good friend as well. And I really appreciate getting to know you and Dr. Giuffrida over these last couple of years. My journey in healthcare really started 2010. I started as a Aquamanus rep at a company called Salient Surgical, got into medical device, and very quickly realized how many problems that there were in healthcare. It was very consistent how many big incentive alignment issues there were between administrators, physicians, reps, the industry, insurance, everyone saying, gosh, and no patients. And there was so much incentive alignment issues, so many incentive alignment issues, I felt like, that weren't being addressed. It was easy to start a business to try to align people. And I originally started as a distributor of spinal hardware, and just started with a simple proposition. Hey, doc, if I could work with you to help compliantly use medical education to build your business by educating patients about treatments that you offer for the pathologies they have, do you think you'd be interested in working with somebody who is committed to that? And everyone says yes. And so I was able to build a nice business with that. And that led to me developing a reputation as somebody who was there to help, someone who is there to be symbiotically aligned with the physician around how can we help you help your patients? How can we help make patients aware of choices or the options that you provide them? And Algos Pathways, a digital health company that I co-founded with Dr. Tyler Tochik in 2020, is an extension of that, where we're trying to do that at scale. How can we help bridge that gap between where a patient who's been to the physician's office 3 times or 4 times and had 2 procedures and isn't having relief, how can we fill that education gap so that patients know that there's more options out there than what they've already had done, even though the physician shared that with them in the room, told them that, hey, if this injection doesn't work, come back. They just don't. I think it's easy for physicians to forget that you may do 20 injections a day, but this is the only injection this patient's going to get for the next 3 months. This is important to them. And so it's easy as a physician, I think, to get in a groove. And as the patient is laying down and you're lining up your spinous processes and figuring out what level you're going to inject, to say, hey, and by the way, if this doesn't work for you, give me a call in another week or two. If this pain comes back, give me another call. We have more options. The patient doesn't hear that. The patient's just thinking, I'm laying prone on a cold table. There's an x-ray machine over me. I hope this works. I hope I'm okay. And so Algos Pathways works to connect with a physician's EMR, identify those patients that have been treated, and engage them with educational material and an opportunity to go back to the physician's office and help close that loop to get them closer to pain relief.
So how does
I love that.
How does the
Sorry.
doctor know that that's an issue, or not know that that's an issue?
That's a great point. So one of the absolute coolest thing, but by the way, they don't know it's an issue and they don't even think it's a problem. That's evidence.
Exactly what I was about to say, Adam.
Right?
Is
Yeah. Like,
we don't know, and
right.
you guys are there helping the patient, which helps us. Which is the point I was trying to make. It's so many people in medicine want to have their hand to help a physician, quote unquote, but they're not actually helping, right? They're just trying to make something for themselves. You guys are helping the patient more than anyone, which helps the physician tenfold.
Right, exactly. It can't, again, it's about incentive alignment. I have to do what's right for everybody, not what's right for someone. And so you mentioned, Neil, how does the physician know? And of course that they don't. I could give you umpteen examples, but here's an easy one. We worked with a practice in Arizona that was in major metropolitan. They had an office on the north side. And they said, hey, we just opened an office on the east side, and we have an ASC there. We'd love to use your tool to figure out how many patients we treated on the north side that we've lost to follow-up, and see if we can get them scheduled on the east side, try to re-engage them. I ran a report, and the practice in 2 years had lost 2,986 patients. 2,986 people had come to their office, been treated within the last 2 years, had come to their office, been treated, and then never scheduled to be seen again. Well, the nature of chronic pain is that only 10% of patients on a year-over-year basis are able to effectively, quote unquote, defeat chronic pain. If a physician performs an injection today, a year from now, at the most, that pain should, in most scenarios, return. Same thing with an RFA, same thing with any of these treatments. So when I say a patient's lost to follow-up, I do want to clearly delineate what that means. The way we define it is a patient who's been seen in your practice, who has not had what we would consider a durable therapy, like a spinal cord stimulator or an SI fusion or a Minuteman, a product that you would anticipate that patient would have a resolution of symptoms and not require further intervention. So when we look in the EMRs, typically what I found is that between 20 to 26% usually of the total patient census meets that criteria as lost to follow-up. We know physicians don't know this because they're currently spending money, good money, trying to market their practice to acquire new patients. You don't have a new patient problem, sir or ma'am. You have a optimization problem. When you think about how expensive it is to acquire a new patient, you should be on the other side spending some low amount of money on the retention portion. If you don't, it's a bit like buying fertilizer for a tree, but then never watering it. You've done the first part really well. You've not done the maintenance to help facilitate its growth.
Adam, where are these patients going then? If there's 2,000 some that you said you identified, what's happening to them? Are they going somewhere else to get follow-up care, or what's happening to them?
Yeah, it depends on how motivated that patient is, right? That's a great question. So some of the time that patient's motivated in pain and they feel like the first provider they went to has done 2 injections and it didn't work. And they think, quote, that doctor doesn't know what they're doing, end quote. If they did, I wouldn't still be in pain. Yeah. Again, that highlights not only an education gap, not because the provider or the physician didn't share it correctly, but the patient didn't hear it correctly. There's a big distinction between, but I told the patient, and the patient understanding. That's the gap we're trying to solve for. And so let's pretend that patient's motivated. They're going to go establish with a new provider, and you as a physician have just worked up a patient for your competitor. So that's what's happened in that scenario. In another scenario where maybe that patient's not as motivated, right? Like we find is that patients start to manage down their active daily life and begin to guard. And so rather than saying it's a big deal that they can't ride any more than 30 minutes in a car without having pain that causes them to have to pull over and stand up and get out, they just stop driving anywhere greater than 30 minutes. So you're either going to see that patient try to reestablish to get a solution with your competition, or you're going to see that patient guard and sort of have a greater degradation of life associated with their inability to function.
That sucks.
In my head, I'm imagining the patient that's guarding and kind of gearing down their activity, their life there. Are they then maybe blaming the healthcare system or a physician? Are they hopeless? What?
I had a friend who was telling me about a consult yesterday that really bothered him, and I talked to him for about 30 minutes about it. He said, this lady came in who I'd done an ACDF on 3 years ago. She came in with an MRI that was greater than a year old. She said she's in terrible pain. I looked at her chart. She'd been discharged from a hospital 2 days earlier. She had different issues that weren't related to a cervical dermatome. And he said to the woman, it seems like you have a lot of really important things that may be going on. I would think it's wise that you schedule a consultation with neurology. And he made some suggestions. And the lady said, I'm here to schedule surgery. I want the pain to stop. And then he got very sideways with her because he was like, ma'am, I don't even have the correct imaging to be able to make a decision about whether or not you need surgery. And I think you have problems that are bigger than this that need to be managed. And she was also on Oxycontin that she was getting from a primary care doctor. So this patient comes in and they're mad as hell and they're in pain and they hurt. And this physician wants to help them, but that patient can't hear. So when we talk about attribution of blame, I think patients just want an answer. I don't really think they care. I think they just want to feel better. They just want to be better. They want to go back to who they are. And whose fault that isn't nearly as important as them getting closer to yes. And I think the nature of healthcare is that, any well-meaning provider is going to stay within their specialty lane, and then they're going to consult where appropriate for problems that are bigger than the one they're responsible for treating. So it's not so much about patients being wanting to blame people, in my opinion, as it is about patients. Patients just want cared for, and they don't want to have chase. They don't want to have to chase a provider. They don't want to have to follow up with 5 MyChart messages to ask clarifying questions of a physician only to have them answered by an MA who provides an unsatisfactory response. And that's the standard in healthcare.
I have a question for you, Adam, on that. So do you think that's continuing to get worse?
Yes.
With how healthcare is being, what's your thought, and why do you think that's getting worse, that interaction? The fact that a patient can't get the answer they want, or they can't get the care they want, or the fact that it takes a long time for them to get that care.
Access is, I think, the original sin. It takes a long time to see a provider. Moreover, when you see a provider, you only have a certain amount of time with that provider. I'll give you an example. The other day, my wife went and saw an endocrinologist. She had to wait. She was fatigued. She thought that was a little odd. So she went to a local place that sells hormone therapy and all that stuff, and she just got a full blood panel. And her TSH was on the borderline. And I said, you really need to see a professional. You don't need to see it. You need to see an endocrinologist. You need to see a professional person. She goes in, she sees the endocrinologist. The endocrinologist, she has to wait 4 months for the appointment with the endocrinologist. Fine, I get it. When she finally speaks with the endocrinologist.
Hold on, let me stop you there. I don't think we should normalize waiting 4 months to see a specialist.
I was going to say, fine. What do you mean, fine?
Not fine.
I'm trying to give providers as much grace as I can.
But it's not the provider's fault either. It's the system. It's just there aren't enough physicians out there, and we can't. I don't think we can do what we need to do. 4 months is crazy.
You can't. How about this? if you have, I mean, the other day, a spine physician put up that he had a secondary finding associated with an MRI that he had for spine pain. Patient had a cancer, an a retroperitoneal cancer. He couldn't get that person a consult for 3 months.
Yeah.
I mean, forget a borderline TSH. I've got cancer and I can't see somebody for 3 months. So
I mean,
pretend you're a patient.
Yeah.
How's that going to work? The other day, now I'm in a little different position than most people, but the other day my wife had got an ultrasound on her kidney. I know it makes her sound like a real disaster, but she had an ultrasound on her kidney because she had a lower GFR, which made yeah, she's fine. She's fine. But yeah, she's a good example. She may be catastrophizing. Who's to say? So we got I got a read on an ultrasound for my kidney in order to get, and it was just, like a MRI report, right? It's a read and I don't know what to make. If you're not, I'm not trained in it, so I don't know what to make of it. Well, I tracked down a urologist in the hall and just asked him. I mean, if you can't do that, I don't know how you can get responses on these things in a timely manner. By the way, the appointment with a nephrologist would be, I think November was the soonest she could see a nephrologist. So
go ahead. Sorry.
I guess to put a bow on it, I want to demonstrate how patient access is, how these distortions in patient access are manifesting in the market. So, have you noticed that with increasing volume, there are ever more nurse practitioner locations that are opening up, that are offering a range of services from Botox to IV therapy to cool sculpting to hormone therapy to whatever, right? You continue to see more and more of these NP locations open. And when you walk in, you have a marble floor. They hand you a water. You check in on an iPad. You sit down and there's another well-meaning person that you're sharing the lobby with. Within 4 minutes, someone calls you back. You have as long of an encounter with that provider as you'd like. They order what tests they think are appropriate, and then you get the answers within 48 hours. When I schedule an appointment, that was her appointment to go get her blood panel done with a nurse practitioner. When she finally waited the 4 months to see the endocrinologist sat with her for about 15 minutes, and she said, it was hard for me to understand him. I said, did he have a tone in his speech where it was difficult to hear him? She said, no, it was that he was typing what he was saying on the computer, so I didn't get to actually look, and I wasn't looking at him. I could only look at his profile.
Okay.
So we're waiting 4 months to have a conversation with the side of someone's head. And then the individual, the physician, again, well-meaning, doing their job, says, why don't you go downstairs and get I want another CBC. So she goes down, so he goes, go to entrance 6. She shows up to entrance 6 at the hospital, and there's nobody there. She has to go find somebody to direct her where she needs to go. If a patient continues to have what I would describe as a DMV experience while seeing appropriate providers, you're going to continue to see an increase in the total number of nurse practitioners that are offering a Ritz-Carlton experience.
Yeah.
What is the difference, though? What is
level.
The main difference in the two experiences?
Timeliness, cleanliness, organization.
I'm saying the main difference in what's driving one being good, one being bad.
What's the root difference?
Well, yeah, I guess the nurse practitioner is in charge of her own shop, and the doctor isn't. And the reason for that.
Did she see the nurse practitioner through her insurance?
Oh no, we don't want to mess with that. We just pay cash.
What about
insurance?
Bingo.
Well, you can't take me to you can't take me to an inpatient site of service. I wouldn't let you use a pair of tweezers on me at an inpatient site of service without insurance being involved, because I don't know what you'll charge me.
Exactly, but that is the difference. That is the difference, though. Insurance pays so little to that endocrine doctor for that half-hour, 15-minute appointment that he can't have someone there to help him type. He can't see her for more than 15 minutes. The hospital can't have someone waiting there to direct him to where the CBC is, because it would be a net negative. Because of how much Medicare for a half-hour appointment pays less than $100.
They suck all the money. There's no
you can't pay all those people, and every single commercial insurance is based off of Medicare rate. You can't pay, what did you pay, if you don't mind me asking, what did you pay at the undercurve at the NP place? $250?
So I have no idea, but I would be certain it was less than $200.
Okay. It's, and their overhead's probably much lower as well. But it's out of control what these people are getting for a half-hour appointment where they can't have help.
Well, they also got cash on the barrelhead. The insurance company had to spend 90 days having a rigmarole with a third party
Well,
and had to
that's
pay a
the
bunch
other
of to collect the revenue.
Mhm.
So you bring up an awesome point, Adam, where in my mind, the healthcare dollars are being spent astronomically right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're paying for health insurance. The employer of your wife is paying for health insurance. You pay a deductible. All that money is going somewhere. But
It is.
the health care she received was not equal to that dollar in my mind.
Yeah. As an independent business owner, I pay roughly $1,900 a month for my family of 5 for Blue Cross, and I have a $3,000 deductible.
Yeah. And
And it's basically just for catastrophics.
And then
And
yeah, then I mean, we get into this a lot in a lot of our podcasts about how much take home the insurance companies are taking. But you made a great point there, and it's the problem in our it's why we aren't healthy in this country and why we don't have great healthcare. It's just it's a pandemic. That's a real pandemic that we have. And it's sad to see. I mean, your wife deserved better care than no knock on this guy. I mean, because it's everywhere.
it's not his fault. That's exactly right. I don't hold him liable. Don't you think he'd rather talk to her than talk to a computer?
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, don't you think he cares? Don't you think he cares more than he was able to give that day? Don't you think my friend who I was talking to about the ACDF, don't you think he's at home upset with himself about how a consult went with a person who he was categorically a lunatic because pain is driven. I said, if you were on Oxycontin and had a bunch of ridiculous pain and just got out of the hospital 2 days ago, you'd be crazy too. Have some sympathy, have some empathy. This person is a lunatic. I get it, but you would be too, were you to be in her shoes.
Yeah.
And so I don't come after doctors on that, but I think the question is, what's the answer? I think if you and I are playing a game and I set the rules and you say, hey, this game's rigged, and I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I make the rules, buddy. Would you continue to play the game with me? And I think that's what we're doing with insurance companies is, and with our traditional medical healthcare complex is we're continuing to just swim upstream against in a broken game. And I think as a physician, you say to yourself, well, what can I do about it? Well, see, the nurse practitioner, she did something about it, or he did something about it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they had a little bit of an advantage. A doctor is worth more to a hospital than they're worth to themselves. Ooh, gee. A nurse practitioner is worth more to themselves than they're worth as an employee. So it's pretty easy math for the willing to decide to start a business if they're a nurse practitioner. Conversely, it's pretty hard math to figure out, I'm going to go private practice. I'm going to function outside the hospital and I'm going to do something different. Now then to take it a step further to how am I going to manage the insurance issue? I'm private practice. That's only part of the step. What about insurance? Well, now you need to create a concierge practice. I asked a physician the other day I met with in Wisconsin. I said, he's a spine surgeon who's going out into a private practice, leaving academics. I said, how do you think about positioning yourself to the market? How do you want to represent yourself in your practice? And he said, I really want to offer a second opinion program. I did really well with second opinions, and I think that'll be a great way for me to, get my way into a new market by saying, hey, I'm here and I'd like to. I said, second opinions did really well with you because you were an academic institution. People who went to an academic institution had basically passed under a sign that said, abandon hope, all ye who enter here. They come into an academic institution with the expectation that they have given up. Yeah. Whatever this person says, that's the gospel. And so you did well with it because that was where you were. Now you're a private practice. You're just another guy. They don't know you're that guy. You're just another guy. You're going to need to come up with something different. Are you going to be talking about serving patients with endoscopy? Are you going to be talking with serving patients with motion preservation? How are you going to do it? And he goes, gosh, I never thought about it that way. I'm going to have to figure out what I'm going to do. I think it's unfair to me that a physician, in order to be a successful private practice physician, needs to be an attorney. They need to be an MBA. They need to be a doctor. They need to be a human resources manager with, Simon Sinek levels of empathy, and EQ. It's absurd. You have to be Superman or woman to have all those skills into one person, let alone the 24 hours you have in a day. And so that's why organizations like you guys help so much by allowing experts to step into each of those domains of expertise and fill those gaps for physicians. And so I think if I'm a physician listening to this, I'm saying to myself, what do I need to do to help get myself right? First, I need to think about how I'm going to function outside the bounds of traditional healthcare. How can I leg into this concierge business? How can I provide an offering to patients? Who do I need to contact? What content do I need to make? I don't have to do it all, but I have to do something. And I need to be confident about just saying, you know what? I know when I don't know enough to know enough, and I need to pick up the phone and get some help.
It's courage.
It's very well said.
Out of your 5 stars, as always, I think that's a great place to land this podcast. That was impressive, my friend. That was impressive. We typically ask the 3 questions, but you just answered them going one step at a time. That was very powerful. I think that was very on point, and this is one of my favorite podcasts, man. So thank you for taking the time on your family trip there to give us some of your time to help manage and then at some point cure this problem of a healthcare that's in shambles. So thank you so much.
I appreciate the platform and appreciate sharing the time with you.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
See you, buddy.
Bye.
This has been the DocNation podcast. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening to us. Your feedback really helps us reach more listeners like you. We'd also love to hear your thoughts and any topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and to join the conversation. Thanks for listening.